Hi, I'm Geraldine. At my sister's cruise wedding, some blonde woman called me useless while I secretly owned the entire shipping company. So I pressed one button, canceled everything I'd paid for, and watched their luxury ship party crumble. Want to know what happened when they discovered the truth? Before I tell you this insane story about how strangers learned not to judge me, please hit that like button if you've ever been looked down on by people who don't know you, and subscribe because I'm sharing stories that will shock you. Trust me, what happened next was incredible. You know that feeling when people look at you and immediately decide you're nobody important? That was my entire life until one wedding changed everything. I'm Geraldine, and I need to tell you about the day I went from being called useless to watching a room full of snobs realize they'd just insulted one of the most powerful women in the world. Let me start from the beginning. I've always been the quiet type. You'd see me on the street wearing simple clothes, driving a regular car, living in a normal apartment, and you'd think I was just another middle-class woman trying to get by. And that's exactly what I wanted you to think. Because the truth? I own one of the world's largest shipping empires. Not just invest in shipping, I actually own it. Ships crossing every ocean, cargo ports in 50 countries, and a business worth about $100 billion. Yeah, you heard that right. 100 billion. With a B. But here's the thing. I keep it completely secret. I don't live in a mansion. I don't wear designer clothes. I don't drive fancy cars. Why? Because I learned early on that when people know you have money, they treat you differently. They want something from you. They're fake. And I wanted real relationships with people who liked me for me, not my bank account. So when my sister, Amanda, announced she was getting married, I was genuinely excited. Finally, a chance to use my resources for something beautiful, something that would make someone I love happy. Amanda had always been the golden child in our family, prettier, more outgoing, more social. I was okay with that. I loved her and I wanted her wedding to be perfect. She told me she'd found this amazing guy, a businessman with good connections, and they wanted to get married on a luxury cruise ship. Now, most people would hear that and think expensive. But Amanda looked at me with those hopeful eyes and asked if I could help with the costs. Of course, I said yes immediately. What she didn't know was that I actually owned the cruise line she wanted to use. The ship rental was $500,000 for 3 days. I paid it without blinking. Amanda nearly fainted when I told her it was handled. She kept asking how I could afford it, and I just said I'd been saving up. The truth was, $500,000 is what my companies make in about 30 minutes on a regular Tuesday, but that was just the beginning. Amanda wanted everything to be perfect, and I was going to make sure it was. She wanted gourmet catering for 200 guests, $80,000. Done. She wanted a live band, elaborate flower arrangements, and decorations that would make it look like a fairy tale. Another $150,000. The presidential suite for her and her new husband, $50,000 more. By the time we were finished planning, I'd quietly spent almost $800,000 on her wedding. And you know what? I was happy to do it. I thought this would be a beautiful celebration of love and family, surrounded by the ocean I'd built my empire on. I had no idea I was walking into a nightmare. The day of the wedding arrived, and the ship was absolutely stunning. Picture this. A gleaming white luxury liner, 5 decks of pure elegance, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and views of endless blue ocean in every direction. Amanda looked like an absolute queen in her flowing white dress, and I could see how happy she was. I wore a simple red dress, nothing fancy, just something comfortable and appropriate. I wasn't trying to stand out or steal attention. This was her day. The guest list was huge. Family, friends, business contacts, and Amanda's new in-laws who had brought their entire social circle. I'm talking about seriously wealthy people here, the kind who spend more on a handbag than most people make in a year. Designer clothes everywhere, expensive jewelry catching the light, conversations about their yachts and vacation homes. It was like stepping into a different world. And then there were the blonde women. Oh, these women. Picture the most stereotypical mean girls you can imagine, but with unlimited credit cards and zero self-awareness. They traveled in a pack, looking down their noses at everyone, making snide comments about people's clothes and appearances. The leader of this group, let's call her Brittany because she absolutely looked like a Brittany, had this way of looking at you like you were something unpleasant she'd stepped in. From the moment I boarded the ship, I could feel their eyes on me, whispering, giggling, pointing. I tried to ignore it. I was here for Amanda, not to impress a bunch of strangers, but as the day went on, their behavior got worse and worse. During the cocktail hour, while everyone was mingling on the upper deck with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, Brittany and her crew finally approached me. I was standing quietly by the railing, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink, when I heard her voice behind me. "So, you're Amanda's sister?" She looked me up and down like she was evaluating livestock. "What do you do for work?" I kept it simple, like I always do. "I work in shipping." The reaction was immediate. Brittany actually laughed, this high-pitched, condescending sound that made my skin crawl. "Like packing boxes, loading trucks? How humble of you." Her friends started snickering. One of them, a redhead with too much makeup, chimed in, "It's so sweet that Amanda includes everyone in her special day, even the less fortunate family members." I felt that familiar sting, that burn of embarrassment and anger that I'd been swallowing my whole life. But I just smiled and nodded, because what was I supposed to do? Start bragging about my net worth to strangers? That's not who I am. But they weren't done. Oh no, they were just getting started. During dinner, as we sat at these elegantly decorated tables with the ship gently swaying beneath us, Brittany got louder and meaner. She'd had a few glasses of champagne, and alcohol had loosened whatever filter she might have had. She was telling stories about her recent trip to Monaco, dropping names of celebrities she'd supposedly met, making sure everyone knew how important and wealthy she was. Then she turned her attention back to me. "It's really admirable," she said, loud enough for the entire table to hear, "how Amanda includes everyone in her celebration, even ... She paused dramatically, looking directly at me. "Even useless women who can't really contribute much to society." The table went dead silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd react. My sister Amanda looked mortified but didn't say anything to defend me. Her new husband was staring at his plate. Even the people I didn't know looked uncomfortable, but Brittany wasn't finished. "I mean, what's the point of having family charity cases at such an elegant event? Some people just drag down the whole atmosphere, you know?" That's when something inside me snapped. I'd spent my entire adult life building an empire from nothing. I'd worked 18-hour days, made decisions that affected thousands of employees, navigated international trade deals worth billions of dollars. I owned ships that these people had probably traveled on without even knowing it. I controlled supply chains that delivered goods to stores where they shopped. I was one of the most powerful people in the room, and this woman was calling me useless. I excused myself calmly, told everyone I needed some fresh air, and walked up to the ship's upper deck. The night was beautiful. Stars reflecting on the dark water, gentle ocean breeze, the sound of waves against the hull. Under any other circumstances, it would have been peaceful. But I wasn't feeling peaceful. I was feeling something I'd never felt before, the desire to show exactly who I really was. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. "This is Geraldine Chen," I said when my operations manager answered. "I need you to cancel the Martinez wedding charter immediately." There was a pause. "Ma'am, are you sure? There are over 200 guests currently aboard." "I'm absolutely sure. Reverse all payments and have the captain dock at the nearest port. End the charter tonight." "But Mrs. Chen, the wedding party paid almost $800,000. "I paid $800,000, I corrected him. "And now I'm taking it back. Make it happen." I hung up the phone and stood there for a moment, watching the waves. In about 20 minutes, everyone downstairs was going to learn exactly who they'd been dealing with. I walked back to the dining room with the biggest smile I'd had all day. The dinner was still going on, with Brittany holding court and telling another story about some exclusive resort she'd stayed at. I sat down quietly and waited. I didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, the captain's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to unexpected payment processing issues, we will be returning to port immediately. We apologize for any inconvenience." The reaction was instant chaos. Guests started looking around confused, asking each other what was happening. I could actually feel the ship changing direction, turning back toward land. Amanda jumped up from her seat, panic written all over her face. "What's going on?" she demanded, looking around the room like someone might have answers. The catering staff, who had been discreetly serving dessert, suddenly started cleaning up and packing their equipment. The band stopped playing mid-song. The decorations that had cost a fortune started coming down. It was like watching a beautiful dream dissolve in fast forward. Brittany was furious. "This is unacceptable!" She shrieked at no one in particular. "Do you know who I am? I have connections. This will ruin my entire weekend." Amanda cornered me, desperation in her voice. "Geraldine, please, you have to fix this somehow. This is my wedding. Can't you call someone from your shipping job? Maybe you know someone who works for the cruise line?" I looked at my sister, really looked at her, this woman I'd loved and supported my entire life, who had just sat there while strangers insulted me, who was now begging me to fix a problem she didn't even understand. "Actually," I said calmly, "I think I can help with that." Brittany spun around to face me. "Oh, please," she sneered. "What could you possibly do? You pack boxes for a living." That's when I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. It was open to a business news article from that morning. Chen Maritime Enterprises reports record quarterly profits. CEO controls 40% of global shipping. Brittany's eyes widened as she read the headline. "Chen, that's your last name?" "Chen Maritime Enterprises," I said, my voice steady and calm. "That's my company. I don't work in shipping. I own shipping. This ship we're on? I own it. The cruise line? Mine too. The $800,000 wedding that just got canceled? That was my money." The silence in that room was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop over the sound of the engines as we headed back to port. Amanda's mouth was hanging open. Her new husband looked like he'd seen a ghost. But it was Brittany's expression that I'll remember forever. Pure shock mixed with horror as she realized what she'd done. "You see," I continued, "when you called me a useless woman who couldn't contribute to society, you were talking to someone who employs over 50,000 people worldwide. When you said I was a charity case dragging down the atmosphere, you were insulting someone who could buy and sell everyone on this ship without checking my bank balance." Brittany tried to stammer out an apology, but I held up my hand to stop her. "I spent $800,000 on this wedding because I wanted my sister to be happy. I could have spent $8 million and not noticed the difference. But you know what I learned tonight? Money can't buy you class, and it definitely can't buy you kindness. You have neither." The ship docked about an hour later, and I arranged for buses to take everyone back to their hotels. Amanda's perfect wedding was over, but honestly, it had stopped being perfect the moment those women decided to tear down a stranger for their own entertainment. In the days that followed, everything changed. My secret was out, and suddenly, everyone wanted to be my friend. Amanda apologized over and over, saying she had no idea who I really was. Her new husband kept trying to pitch me business ideas. Even Brittany found my contact information somehow and sent me a groveling email about how she'd misunderstood the situation. But you know what? I realized I didn't want any of them in my life. Real family doesn't sit quietly while strangers insult you. Real friends don't judge you based on your clothes or your job title, and people who only respect you after they find out you're wealthy? They're not worth your time. These days, I'm more selective about who I let into my world. I still live simply, but I'm not hiding who I am anymore. I use my resources to help people who actually deserve it. Scholarships for kids who can't afford college, funding for small businesses owned by people who've been overlooked by traditional banks, disaster relief for communities that big corporations ignore. And Amanda? She learned a valuable lesson about standing up for the people you love, regardless of what strangers think. Our relationship is better now than it's ever been, built on honesty instead of secrets. As for Brittany and her crew of mean girls, I heard through the social media grapevine that they're much more careful about who they insult these days. Turns out when you're rude to someone who controls a significant portion of global trade, word gets around pretty quickly in wealthy social circles. The funniest part? They had no idea that some of their favorite luxury brands, the clothes they wore, the jewelry they flaunted, the cars they drove, all got to them on my ships. Every time they bought something imported, they were probably putting money in my pocket without even knowing it. Looking back, that ruined wedding was the best thing that ever happened to me. It taught me that hiding who you are doesn't protect you from cruel people. It just makes you an easier target. It showed me that real respect has to be earned through character, not demanded through wealth. And most importantly, it proved that sometimes the quiet person standing in the corner is exactly who you should be afraid of underestimating. So the next time you see someone who doesn't fit your idea of success or importance, remember my story. That useless person might just own the ground you're standing on. And if you're thinking about being cruel to someone just because you think you can get away with it, think again. You never know who you're really talking to. So that's how I went from being called useless to showing them who really had the power. Do you think those mean girls got what they deserved? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading your thoughts. And if you've ever been underestimated by people who judged you too quickly, hit subscribe. I've got more stories about people who got the ultimate revenge. Remember, never judge someone by their appearance. You never know who you're really talking to. See you next time.